Okay, so I'm back here with Annette to just talk about some of the more practical things that we can do to practice gratefulness. And one of the things that I realize I do, and this sounds kind of funny, but like, I love to go surfing, and I've
Hmm.
got a favorite coffee shop that I go to after I go surfing. So when I'm on vacation over in California, I'll surf till I'm totally worn out, go sit in my favorite coffee shop, sip some coffee. And maybe 5, 6 years ago, I bought a coffee mug from that coffee shop. And now, on my days off, I don't use this coffee mug on any other days, just on my days off. I will be sitting at my house, maybe in the backyard or something, or in my living room, and just seeing that coffee mug. It's got the little logo from the coffee shop. There's something about it. It just makes me like I think of the salt air and
It's
what it
fabulous.
feels like when I've come out of the ocean and I've just had a great day of
It's
surfing and
really
stuff.
good.
Like, it lets me connect back to all the wonderful things, and it makes my day off a better day off when I
Hmm.
drink coffee out of that mug.
I bet. And what you're doing in that moment is you are being grateful for those memories too. Notice that you're being
I'm cutting
grateful.
more
Yes,
grooves
you're cutting more.
into.
Yes,
Okay,
and you're being grateful that you've had that opportunity and just thinking about it, you're grateful for that ability to think about it.
so you have a journal here that I
I do.
know you love and have recommended. Tell us a
Yes,
little bit about
yes.
this.
So it's called Start with Gratitude, and there's a lot out there. Just do a search, and you can find a lot of different journals on gratitude. But I like the way this one is set up, and it's good to have something like this sometimes because it gives you ideas for how to. Think about gratitude and thankfulness and just gets those juices flowing. And again, remember, just asking yourself the question, what am I grateful for? Or, for example, in here, it says things from today that I would like to do again tomorrow. And that's a way of identifying something that we're thankful for. Or moments that made me smile today, unique things about today. There's just some really good sort of sentence starters that get our brain going in that direction.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
yeah,
Are the questions different every day, or is it like the same set of questions
they're
that?
they're they're random and different throughout, and then some of them you'll see repeated again, but mostly they're different. And then at the end of the month, something I really like is that it allows you to take a look back on some of the things that you have talked about in your journal, and then it asks you to consider what you've learned by being grateful and thankful. What have I learned? What have I learned about myself? What have I
It's
learned?
kind of a way to consolidate
Yes, it is.
all like the things you've been practicing to
Yes.
like
And
not lose them or
yes,
like.
and then you have them to come back to. And so I cannot emphasize enough. It is important to write it down or do what we talked about before in the last segment about speaking it into, your phone, doing an audible journal, but one or the other, to be very intentional. That's what changes our brain. That's what gives us an anchor.
Is there something about the intentionality that does something in the brain
Yes.
more than just, well, I had a good feeling just now? It like
It does. And
it's
and we don't know exactly why that is, but that is the case. And brain scientists have really figured some things out for us about this, and they can see changes in our brain by practicing this kind of discipline every day. And over time, it makes a difference. It gives us something that we don't have minus this if we don't do something like this.
so there's something about that I didn't realize until you said this, and you know this about me. I love questions
Yes, you
that
do.
we ask ourselves.
Hmm.
Like, without trying to come up with the answer, is to come up with a question first and then get into a different space. And like, because it and I think for me, I've found that it, asking that question, like, it does something in my brain.
You bet it does. Just asking any intentional question does something for us, by the
Yeah,
way.
and
Just the
this
process of that.
has questions that gear us towards
Yes, it does.
discovering those moments that we would naturally be grateful for. So
Hmm.
it's not like conjuring up gratefulness,
No,
like, okay, I'm really upset with my kids and it was a lousy day at work, and
but
I'm gonna just pretend it was
right.
good when it
Or I
wasn't.
know I'm supposed to be grateful for my family, so I'll write that down. Okay, that's good.
But it's question, yeah, like that seems like that would have the opposite
Right,
effect in
right,
there.
right.
But it's helping us discover all of those moments that we're grateful for.
Yes. And again, you don't have to have something like this, but sometimes it's helpful to get you started. I've done things like this. I've also done times when I type it into a page on my computer. Or,
Yeah, what are some of the other things that
I've done times when I've literally, and this is going to sound a little crazy, but I have at times just written it on a scrap paper because I know that I need to articulate that in a tangible way, but don't have something right next to me at that moment
Right.
to do it. So I just pick up a piece of paper real quick. It's powerful to think about it. It's powerful to write it down, to speak it, to tell a friend what you wrote down is a good thing to do as well later that day, to say, I've had clients who will sometimes find a friend and they do these gratefulness exercises with each other every day, or they text them to each other what they were grateful for, and that's a great way to sort of reinforce that groove, that neural pathway that allows us to make a significant difference at a biological level.
And it seems like you can do something that's more involved. Like I could see taking a journal like that. Like when I ask those questions, I can sit in a space for a long time and think through and write all of that stuff. But there are so many other times where I don't
Write it down. Sure.
Well, I don't want to spend all of that time. Like
Sure.
I'm active and like
Glenn, I'm glad you said that because this isn't a long time. So for example, in this particular journal, it is 2 questions a day, and they're simple. They're not essay questions. They're I am thankful for, and then unique things about today, for example. That's it. You're done.
Okay.
And to overanalyze it would probably sort of have the opposite effect too.
Okay.
You just want to kind of go with your first heartfelt thing.
So you don't have to carve out a lot of time
No.
to carve a nice positive groove in your brain too.
Correct. I'm so glad you said that. That's super important in today's world that we live in. That can sometimes get in the way.
Just hearing you say that, like one of the things that I will do from time to time, and this sounds funny, but I will, if I'm not in a place with lots of people around, I will say something out loud, like to myself.
That's good.
Yeah, because somehow it seems like there's an intentionality with it that helps me anyhow. So like yesterday, busy day, and of course like schedules all change everything, and I get in my truck and I'm driving home and just kind of feeling the hecticness of the day, and driving down Tangerine, and there's a few spots on Tangerine late in the day. The sun is hitting the Catalina Mountains.
Oh, I've seen that. Yes.
And there's just spots where I don't know, it's the angle or whatever.
I bet some of the people watching have observed that too. It is beautiful. I've even pulled over and just sat in awe of that.
Yes. And it was just like they were huge, and they were kind of in that blue purpley hue. And all I did was I said out loud to myself, this is why I love to live here.
Yes.
It's not the only reason. There's lots of other reasons.
Sure.
But
that gets at the spirit of being in a tangible.
I'm so grateful that I get to see mountains.
Yes.
That I love to see, that are so beautiful. Yeah. And it just it put me in a different space.
And I would take that one step further even. I would say if you're doing an exercise like this, that the next morning or that evening, whenever you do this, that you write that down. Or if you're doing an audible journal, that you say that into your journal, that you just write that down, because there is something about, and probably a little more so writing it down than just saying it or even doing an audible journal, but there's something about seeing your words. And
do you collect them? Do you, like, if you had like the journal, like, so it's not just
I do
write it down, and
I even collect my scrap pieces of paper. I have another journal that I just kind of tuck them in, and so when I look at that one, they all kind of fall out. It's kind of fun though, because their date is on them, and and
it kind of represents an accumulative thing of gratefulness.
Yes.
Wow. Anything else?
I would also say that it does represent an accumulative thing, because the things that we can be grateful for, regardless of where we're at in life, it is thousands of miles long. Sometimes I think it can feel constraining, or I don't have a lot to be grateful for, but if you really start practicing and thinking about it, the list is actually endless. And one thing, if you unpack it and look underneath it, then there's another thing. So for like your example about the mountains are beautiful. I'm grateful for those mountains. And then the next thing you said, that's one of the reasons I love living in Tucson. I'm thankful I live in Tucson. So there, in that one thing, there's at least two complete gratefulness things to put on your list in just that one moment. And I bet we could find 5 more in that one experience.
So like I don't know that it's a strange way. It probably all fits. So like the Psalms, that's in some ways,
yes.
The Psalms are just repeating things to be grateful about. It's things that just like God made mountains, and mountains are beautiful, and they're like, there's something about there's almost something rhythmic to going through that. And I wonder if the way God made our brains, if there isn't something that our brains actually need, something that it actually builds something.
I think we are discovering that, God knows, of course, but we are finally catching up and discovering that we absolutely need this. That we live in a world that is so controversial, and there's so much, negative stuff coming at us all the time. And again, this isn't just an exercise about being positive, but it does allow our brain to access something that is worth spending time on, that helps us with all the other stuff coming at us. And there's just a lot happening in today's world that this is becoming essential. And perhaps for the psalmist, there was a lot going on there as well, and it was essential to have that space to put that down.
So I'm going to end it on that, and essential. I like that maybe there's something essential that our brains need to kind of carve those neural pathways. And so can I just encourage all of you, whether you're really struggling in this moment or whether you're doing well, that maybe taking a little bit of time every day to be grateful for 1 or 2 things. And then I'm going to go back to what you said, be deliberate about either writing it down or collecting it in some way. And maybe read the Psalms and then go write some of your own Psalms about what you're grateful for, and just see if that doesn't put you in a better place to just sustain through what is kind of a strange, unprecedented time in the world that we're living in right now. Blessings on you, and may you find many, many, many things in your life to be grateful from that are like small gifts from God.